Today we're very happy to have Joe Makesik with us. Joe Makesik holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design from the Pratt Institute and is self-employed as a graphic designer. Mr. Makesik is the president of the Canal Society of New Jersey, president of the Roebling Chapter Society for Industrial Archaeology, director of communications for the Friends of Historic Speedwell, and serves on the Morris County Heritage Commission. He is also the author of the Guide to the Morris Canal in Morris County and offers lectures on local history topics and industrial archaeology. Mr. Makesik's current projects include chairing the Canal Society of New Jersey's Morris Canal Greenway Committee, which he will tell us more about now. Please help me welcome Joe Makesik.
Thank you. Welcome. What a crowd. I was just going over my presentation this morning and looking at some of these slides and reflecting that 180 years later we were going to be in good old George McCullough's house talking about his canal. Do you think George had any inkling that all you folks would be coming to tea to hear me talk about his canal? Rather absurd. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the Morris Canal, some about its story, about how it worked, and a lot about where it is today. It's alive and well. It's just sometimes strange how some history stories stick. It isn't always the most, the story that you would expect everyone to love forever disappear, and here, the old Morris Canal, everybody loves the Morris Canal. And hopefully we will continue to do so, and I'm going to show you that in lots of places all across New Jersey, people are now still loving the Morris Canal and bringing it back and making it relevant in this day and age. Okay. The Morris Canal, completed in 1831, 102 miles long, built all the way across New Jersey from Easton and Phillipsburg on the Delaware River, across the highlands, uphill, all the way to Lake Apacon, and then downhill to the harbor on the other side. Is this going to work for me? No. The founding concept behind the Morris Canal in the 1820s was that people realized that there was millions of tons of anthracite coal in Pennsylvania. People had been mining coal and using it to start an industrial revolution in Great Britain for many years. And in this country, we had plenty of coal, basically useless unless you can sell it to somebody. To do that, you needed transportation systems. People started building canals. All the major cities, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, all wanted a piece of that pie. People want to make money. And there was plenty of money to be made if only that coal could be brought to market. And of course, a direct line between mines and major markets in New York Harbor was the route of Mr. McCullough's Morris Canal. One of the wrinkles with that concept, straight line mine to market, however, in order to accomplish that, the highlands of New Jersey, the mountains that we zoom over in our vehicles, on Route 80, and think nothing of, were in the way of building a transportation across the state of New Jersey. So the Morris Canal had to be built uphill from the Delaware River at Easton to Lake Apacon, which was going to be the summit level of the canal, and then downhill all the way to the harbor, and that was almost 1,700 feet of elevation change. And that was a world record in the 1830s and still is today. Nobody has been dumb enough to try to build a canal over a mountain. But Mr. McCullough was determined to do that. And he well understood the idea that coal was going to be the factor that was going to drive this. But George was a Morris County guy, and he realized that Morris County had incredible assets that were underdeveloped because there was no reliable transportation system to help business boom. And one of the aspects was, of course, the iron industry. The Highlands of New Jersey the Highlands are rich in iron ore, and since long before the Revolutionary War, people were endeavoring to make a living in the iron business in the Highlands, and having a terrible time trying to compete in a world market, and then having to move their materials around, their finished products with wagons on bumpy roads was not working. So George realized that a canal may be founded on the principles of thousands of tons of anthracite coal being delivered to market through his favorite county, but still that was really going to provide what the Morris County iron industry needed to flourish. And so this is Jefferson Township, still the most rural township in our county, and every one of those dots is an iron mining or manufacturing facility. And there's so many bloomery forges and iron furnaces and iron mines up there that they actually built a tramway railroad down to Lake Apacon to be able to move the iron and the iron ore to market. Actually, that railroad was a captive railroad that came down to Nolan's Point on Lake Apacon. The ore was shipped, was loaded onto canal boats. The boats were towed across Lake Apacon and into the canal, and of course the iron ore was going west to the Lehigh Valley. The anthracite coal was going east to the New York market. This very interesting gentleman up here is a hammerman, a fellow who's operating a bloomery forge. It's one of my favorite pictures, that fella. Canal boats. The canal boats were not fine watercraft. They were built to handle large quantities of anthracite coal, bulk cargoes. 90 feet long. There's a great picture of canal boat captain sitting there with the tiller. We did a tour out in Warren County just yesterday, and they have a wonderful full-size replica of a canal boat that you can experience out there. It's not a full model. It's only about the top 18 inches, but you can stand there at the tiller and look, way down at the front end of that boat and imagine yourself going down the canal with the mules pulling yourself along. A canal boat is a huge thing, and you can imagine trying to keep that vessel going down the canal with 70 tons of coal and not get it stuck up against the bank or get yourself into trouble. And of course, the propulsion was a team of 2 mules. These boats didn't move very fast, about 3 miles an hour. It wasn't about how fast the coal got there. It's just a matter of a lot of it got to where it was going. All right, to accomplish the creating a route across New Jersey, the canal engineers used both old and new technology. Canal locks, of course, is a very simple concept, around for 10,000 years. A lock is a stone chamber with doors on either end. You can take your boat into that chamber and either fill the lock or empty the lock. The boat rises or falls and continues on. Back in those days, a canal lock could accomplish about a 10-foot change of elevation, practically speaking, and that was a good thing, but if you consider climbing over the Highlands and 1,700 feet of elevation change, canal locks were not going to be able to accomplish what was needed. Canal locks were not going to be sufficient to accomplish the climbing over the Highlands, so they realized that some other form of technology was going to have to be developed. So they developed inclined planes. Inclined planes were huge water-powered machines that were able to raise and lower the canal boats as much as 100 feet at a time. This is a diagram that I created for Plane 9 West, and this one is one that's now owned by Warren County, and you can go and visit the archaeological remains of that, and there are actually several here in Morris County that you can visit. The way these things worked was that the power of the water of the canal itself was used to operate the machinery to raise and lower the boats. At the upper level of the canal, up here, you've got hundreds of tons of water. If you can take that water and run it in a head race to a powerhouse, drop it down into a reaction turbine, huge sprinkler head, tons and tons of water pouring down into a reaction turbine and forcing that turbine to spin, that creates the force, the energy to pull the boats up or down the inclined plane. When the water has been used by the turbine, it's exhausted with a tail race and goes right back into the canal at the lower level and is passed down and used over and over and over again. So there were 22 of these inclined planes all across New Jersey, and many of them you can still find and examine today. Canal Society and Morris County Parks runs tours that we visit a lot of these places. If people are interested in that, we can talk about that later. This is a picture of the inclined plane in Rockaway, and there is a canal boat that is just exiting a cradle car. The slope of the inclined plane has rails, and on those rails, a cradle car rides up and down on iron wheels. At the top and bottom of the plane, that cradle car actually submerges right into the water of the canal, deep enough that a canal boat can float on or off the cradle car very easily. The boat is secured to the cradle, and the cradle is pulled up or down the inclined plane using the water power as I described before. This is a picture of that huge reaction turbine that was used to create the power. There is one of these preserved up at Packon State Park, and it's truly a huge machine. This pipe, the intake pipe, I can stand right inside, just about that big. So hundreds and hundreds of tons of water is pouring into that sprinkler head and forcing it to turn and pulling the boats up and down the inclined planes. Very, very powerful machine. There we go. Over the last many years, people have been working on Morris Canal Greenway, on appreciating the remains of this fascinating canal and trying to preserve those remains and educate people as to their interest. The Canal Society has been involved at Waterloo, at Saxon Falls, creating trail, many projects for many years. Actually acquiring land, and only in this last almost 4 years now, this project has expanded dramatically from a grassroots based project to a statewide project where almost each of the counties all the way across New Jersey is involved in preserving their sections of the canal. The Canal Society is mostly involved in the canal Greenway here in Morris County, and just this year we received Morris County Open Space money to acquire a piece of property in a very interesting place called Shippingport. How many of you folks know of a place called Shippingport? Cool, we actually have 4 people here.
Yeah, I actually live right over there.
Cool. There are lots and lots of places. You know, ship and port in the middle of Morris County, ships and ports, you know, how could that be? Well, the Morris Canal created ports in places where there shouldn't be ports. This is a small place where inclined plane number 1 lifted the boats one more time up to the summit level at Lake Apacon. So Ship and Port Road, right off the road to landing, right at the bottom of Lake Apacon. There's a wonderful stretch of canal that has lots and lots of interest. One, because the route of the canal can be identified, the remains of the inclined plane are still there, and the water that operated the inclined plane was also used in several other different ways. The canal company's charter was adjusted at a certain point to allow it to go beyond being just a transportation company, and they were allowed to sell their excess water for manufacturing purposes. So the water is coming down from Lake Apacon, which is over in this direction, and being collected in this nice pond, and it's being tapped off to run the inclined plane, or a sawmill, or this bloomery forge. And the archaeological remains of all those things are still there. So we were able to get the funding to begin the process of purchasing this piece of property here, the Pfeiffer property. And as you can see, the Morris Canal goes right across the property and will be part of our Greenway project and part of Roxbury's trail program. And as you'll see in the next couple of images, a whole bunch of other pieces of adjacent property are going to come together to make a very interesting public area. Some pictures of that causeway with the pond on either side, and it's really a lovely spot. And the real estate deal is ongoing as we speak, and we hope that by the end of the summer we'll actually have trail.
Of the 100 mile or so canal, of the 100 miles or so
Yes.
canal, what percentage was filled in the early mid-20th century, and what percentage remains authentically intact?
I don't know if I have a meaningful, I think you probably can identify about 50% of it. As far as water-filled canal, that's almost impossible in most places because of there's no continuity. But there are some very interesting places where that does still happen, and I'm going to show you a bunch of those places, and they're right nearby. So, there we go. Okay, so this area at the bottom of Lake Apacon is an area of great interest right now because Roxbury is very interested in developing their trails program. The folks at the Lake Apacon Foundation are interested in developing a trail all the way around their lake. And the intersection of Landing Road at the bottom of the lake is being redeveloped. And all these projects are coming together with the Greenway that's also coming through there. And all of those stakeholders are cooperating to create not just a more suitable traffic pattern, but also to create a public thoroughfare through there that serves many, many purposes. The Morris Canal Braille Trail that opened just 2 years ago, and this is one of those sections of canal that is water-filled, and it's a little-known section that connects Stanhope to the trade zone. The Abaddon Corporation, which is a company that produces scents and flavors, partnered with Mount Olive Township to take this section of canal and to put it into public venue. So it is now a public thoroughfare and a piece of Greenway trail. It's got a nice walkway and some stanchions and a rope along it, so people who are sight impaired can also use this trail. And it's also a section where the canal can be kept full of water, so it's a wonderful linear experience that you can walk on anytime. And this is the culmination of phase one that takes the canal from the bottom of Stanhope to where it's cut off by 206, but the next phase will take it either over to Waterloo or over to the Sussex Branch Trail off Waterloo Road. Here we go. Okay, here in Morris County, there are many, many projects, big ones, small ones. This is the Morris Canal Greenway Park in Montville, and this is a project that was done with a very, very small amount of money by volunteers, lots and lots of sweat equity. There were 2 inclined planes in this spot. The canal is crossing the coastal plain and getting ready to climb up into the highlands. And I think this is probably, I think Montville has the single largest rise or fall of the canal in any single community. But right here at where Route 202 and River Road join, there are 2 inclined planes, and this property is in public venue. And I think 2 years ago, the Canal Society partnered with the Montville Historical Society to take a piece of that publicly owned property and make it into a small park. So there are some of the volunteers, and this is the spot at the top of inclined plane number 9, and you can see some of the trash that we had to remove to clean off this area. But with a small amount of money, we are able to produce some interpretive panels to create trail, to create a monument sign out at the road, and this park is almost ready for prime time. I don't think there's anybody in that picture who's under 60, so if you want stuff done, get some old people. That's me on the end. I think I am the younger one of the bunch. There we go. This is what it looks like today. We've got an area where the inclined plane comes up to its summit and continues down into the next level of the canal, and this has all been cleaned off. Stones have been realigned or dug out. It's a nice, long, thin piece of property that we hope will continue on up to that next inclined plane at some time in the future. We've had scouts come and continue the trail further along, and we need hopefully this year to create some parking spaces there and to expand this park as far as it can go. So this is a really small but very worthwhile project. There we go. People love these inclined planes, and there are so many of them in Morris County that are absolutely great. You can go and visit these things anytime. It's only that most people don't know that they're there. In Canal Park in Ledgewood, this was a project of the Canal Society of New Jersey in cooperation with the local historical society and the township. This was an inclined plane that had been cleared by the Rotary Club years ago, and they did a marvelous job of removing trees and making this area accessible. But when it came to clearing away the rubble that was choking the turbine chamber, where the machinery was all, you know, the sexy parts that people love to see, that was cleared, but not necessarily secured. And over the years, problems began to develop where the stonework was beginning to crumble. The turbine chamber comes up to the surface and had just been covered with some sheet fencing for years, and we were fortunate nobody ever fell in that hole and hurt themselves. But lots of water kept falling in there and keeping everything wet, and the place where the tail race, where the water exits from the turbine chamber, there's a stone arch there, and that arch began to fail. The stones began to come out of alignment, and it got worse and worse and worse over the years until finally that partnership that I mentioned got the funding together to actually repair it. So the Archaeology was done, plans were made, contractors were hired, and rather than have that whole side of the turbine chamber crumble and have to be rebuilt, which probably never would have happened, we were able to jack that arch back into place. Contractors actually pushed the stones back into place and repointed all the stonework. And now this whole situation is in beautiful condition. So you've got a picture of that, I hope. I don't. Okay. The upper part of the turbine chamber was brought up above grade, and bluestone was situated all around the outside. A building was built over the top to keep the rain and the elements from getting bound to the stonework again. And it is a marvelous, marvelous site. This is something that, again, you can go and visit almost any day and go check it out. That's a phase 1 situation. It needs a phase 2. We tried to get a phase 2 this year, and our grant application was turned down. So we're keeping at it. It needs some signage. It needs some landscape tender loving care. But this is a place we'll be giving a tour in the next 3 weeks, I think, sometime. Anybody who would like to come and visit this place, I'll have a sign-up sheet outside. Okay, Wharton. How many people have visited the lock restoration project in Gary, of course? Bob, you got to raise your hand. Not that many people. Part of our problem is that not enough people realize all the interesting things there are to do with the Morris Canal Greenway. Wharton loves their canal. The canal invented Wharton. It used to be called Port Orem. For most of its useful life, it was just a spot on the Morris Canal where people dug ore and made iron and put it onto boats. It wasn't until Mr. Wharton came along and built an iron furnace there that they loved him so much that they changed the name of the town. But Wharton really loves its canal history. And they've got a nice water-filled section of canal that they've taken very good care of for years and years. But about 10 years ago, John Manna and other residents decided that that spot at the end of their water-filled section of canal, well, they knew that there was a lock there. Everybody knew there was a lock there, but you couldn't find it. It was buried there someplace, and done many a tour there and told people about the lock, but nothing to be seen. But could we do something about that? Could that lock be restored? Could people actually somehow benefit by what was buried in the ground? There we go. Okay, another long process of funding, of archaeology, of engineering, of hiring contractors, and it was discovered that, in fact, that lock was there. It hadn't been destroyed. It had only been stabilized. The top layers of stone had been pushed in. All the machinery that operated the lock had just been cut off and pushed down in the mud, and the lock had been filled in and put to sleep. The lock tender's house was occupied by tenants up until the 1960s, and it was somebody's front yard for years and years and years. So after establishing that the remains of the lock were in fact still there, archaeology was done, contractors were hired, and the lock was cleaned out. You can see the board floor of the lock down in here that supports that whole structure. The contractor cleaned out all the stonework and pulled out all the operating parts of the machinery, and found that the lock at its base was in perfect condition. And you can see here they've got a nice cofferdam across there to keep the water out for the time being, and the stonework has been completely rebuilt. It's now at the end of phase 2. All the stonework is complete, and the lock miter gates at the lower end of the lock are now installed, and this project is moving along beautifully. It needs a phase 3 to finish up the machinery, and it'll be an operating lock. There we go. There's a great picture of how it looks today. These are the gates that have just been reinstalled. They're huge things. They weigh tons. They were remanufactured by some very talented people out in Pennsylvania. And this is the way it looked only, 10 years ago. It's been a long, long process. The lock was completely buried, and now it is ready for prime time. And another place that you can visit any day. And you park at New Forest Park and walk down a nice water-filled section of the canal, and at the end you're greeted by this wonderful experience to see this huge stone thing.
So you'll flow at both ends and it's an operating lock?
It will be. The lock is right at the border of the town's border, and it's adjacent to a pond. The town owns the right-of-way of the canal across the pond, but they don't own the pond. It's owned by County Concrete, and right now they won't sell it. They'll sell it eventually. We'll get what we need. You have to be very, very patient. That's the key thing for all of these projects. You need to be very patient. So the water now runs into the lock anyway, gravity will have its way. But there's not enough water to operate the lock now. We'll be able to lock our canal boat on Wharton Canal Day in and out, but we won't be able to fill the lock until sometime in the future we get possession of the pond. So again, patience, patience, patience. Okay. Not just a Morris County thing. Since the Canal Greenway project has been picked up across the state, the canal in Passaic County has become probably the hottest item. Only about 4 years ago, Passaic County, that doesn't have a very strong park commission, decided that they would like to possibly think of the Morris Canal as a linear park in their community that might be a very doable asset. And they acquired some funding to do a feasibility study, put some very, very talented people on their planning board in charge of the project, and discovered that in fact they had lots of canal greenway in Passaic County. The freeholders loved the project. They got in touch with the Canal Society. We created a whole lot of synergy, and now they've got about 6 miles of trail. We're working on a canal park in Patterson. 2.5 years ago, they got more than $500,000 to create Greenway Trail from Patterson into Clifton. This year, they've got $400,000 to close up a gap in their Greenway Trail right in here. And if they, in years to come, again, patience, come to agreement with the North Jersey Water Supply people who own the canal route along the canal's feeder in Wayne, they will have as possibly 20 miles of trail. And every time we meet with them, they've got a new project. So it's actually difficult to keep up with these folks. We're now talking with them about creating a park at the feeder dams in Wayne on property that they already own. So this is rolling along perfectly. Patterson Canal Park, until we started working with them, we really didn't have any idea there was any canal left in Patterson. All of it should have been under Route 80. The canal needed to come around the top of Garrett Mountain in order to stay on its long 17-mile level. And I think it was pretty much understood that the canal had been completely buried, and we could do some interesting things, but we couldn't do any great things. But hey, we discovered that they missed a piece. And the county loved the idea that we found a great piece of canal and put some money into it, and it's going to be a park. We visited it last weekend, and they've already started construction. They're actually going to be closing off a piece of Barn Street that adjoins the park and making that part of the story. And it's going to be a wonderful thing. This is the canal in Little Falls, and the canal crossed the Passaic River here in a huge stone aqueduct. And the maker's stones for the aqueduct were saved when the aqueduct was destroyed, and they are they are now in a park in Little Falls and part of the Greenway. There we go. Even in Jersey City, places that for years we didn't consider to be in any way doable. Canal Society has been working on Greenway for a long time, and we never really had the assets as a historical society to reach out into other counties. But we realized with the help of other counties and acting as consultants, we could do amazing things. Jersey City saw what Passaic County was doing and decided that they could do the same thing, that the canal would provide a historic corridor through many of their neighborhoods that could add value to their local communities. And they went the same route of creating a feasibility study, proving that, establishing how a greenway could be set up in Jersey City. And now the greenway is part of the planning documents in Jersey City, and will be part of there are future development projects all down this side of Jersey City, the first one being at Berry Lane Park in this area here. And as each of those projects comes to fruition, the canal greenway will be part of those developments. So Berry Lane Park is in the building right now. I'm working on the signage for that. It's a huge area that's going to be baseball fields and recreation, and Morris Canal Greenway right down the center. It's going to be a lovely place.
Looks like part of it is on the light rail right-of-way?
No, it does cross the light rail right-of-way in several locations, but that does provide all kinds of interesting access situations with the Greenway Trail. Okay, there we go. And of course, Waterloo is one of our favorite projects. The Canal Society is deeply involved in Waterloo. If the Greenway was a string of pearls, then Waterloo is definitely the jewel in the center. Waterloo is a canal town. It has a long, long history, but it flourished in the 1860s as a canal village when the Morris Canal was built through this area. And it has an amazing story. As a matter of fact, there's a wonderful book just written by one of our members, and we've got a few for sale outside. If any of you folks love Waterloo, I would suggest maybe you read this book, because it's the first time that a really good, concise history of Waterloo has ever been created. And after you read the book, come and visit us. It's no fun doing programming at Waterloo if nobody comes. There's an inclined plane, there's a lock, there's an aqueduct. Almost every sort of canal technology that you can imagine is here. We're busy partnering with state parks to rebuild the mule bridge that once connected up Waterloo to the inclined plane on the Morris County side of the river. Bob Barth and I are going to be talking with state parks tomorrow about cutting the lumber to rebuild that bridge. Many, many exciting things are happening at Waterloo. We will be there starting with Waterloo Canal Day on the 27th of June, and then every other Wednesday, hopefully, every other Saturday, rather, through the end of October. So please come and visit us. That will be in our newsletter, and that's which will be coming out shortly. Okay, so there's so many things going on with Greenway. It's hard to keep up with it all. We keep pushing it down the road, and it's working very nicely, but it really needs folks like you. It's about people. We were out in Warren County visiting Jim Lee Jr. and Jim Lee III, visiting the property that that their father preserved at Plain 9, and seeing what a small group of people can do with a community that loves their history. And every place along the Greenway across the state, it's about the people who care about this that make it happen. The money is fine. Everything that we do requires money, but the money will never ever arrive unless there are people who care about it, the people who have vision. And so you're the kinds of folks who come in here, me drone on and on, who might care enough to help us out, to make these kinds of things work. Thoughts or questions about any of this? Sir?
I have a question about how the operation of the canal. If there was a canal barge going east and a canal barge going west, and the mules were on the same side, how did they pass?
There was a protocol.
Okay.
One boat had to stop and let its tow rope go to the bottom so that the other boat could pass over.
And the other thing I was going to mention, you mentioned at the beginning about George's Canal, and we're still talking about it. In a letter he wrote to his son, he referred to the canal as his eternal ditch. So forever in eternity, think of George and the canal.
His eternal ditch.
Eternal ditch.
George was quite an interesting guy, and he was a consummate promoter. And he often got himself into trouble, but he was also very good at getting himself out. He could identify just the right expert to get him out of hot water when all of a sudden it was discovered that Lake Apacon was actually 900 feet up in the air instead of 200 feet up in the air. And oops. We're going to have some membership forms out in the lobby and some newsletters. Please don't make me take them home. Please consider joining us. We are one of the largest historical societies in the state, and incredibly active, and we need you. We need you to help us do the interesting things that we have planned for the future. And if you've got a little time to come and join us, meet some of our interesting members, come to one of our meetings. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to consider, you joining us. So, thank you all.